Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin, and joining us today is the writer and producer for Here for Blood, James Roberts. A blood-soaked horror comedy dropping on Screenbox and for a special night in theaters on February 9th. So let's dive into character and world building. James, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I just want to say right off the bat before we start diving into everything that this film is extremely fun. It is
Thank you.
so entertaining. I'm going to be watching it again tonight because I feel like there's a few things in there that I missed. But I just want to congratulate you and the whole team behind this of how ridiculously fun this film is.
Thank you. That was our mission, and it sounds like you got what we were going for. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. When I usually have guests on here, I always like to kind of like bring everything back and kind of dive into where everything kind of started with them. So you were the writer and the producer on here. So where did the love of writing or horror, wrestling, or anything that you've done leading up to this point? Where did it kind of all begin for you?
Well, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I just loved horror. We had these books at our school library when I was like 5, and there were Universal horror monster books. So they had one
Oh,
for
nice.
Dracula, they had one for Frankenstein, Wolfman, Invisible Man, and I was obsessed. I would just look at the imagery and just like imagine these monsters rising from the grave, and I was just fascinated. A lot of kids horror shows like Goosebumps
Oh,
and
hell yeah.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? And then one of my favorites was the kids animated Tales from the Crypt Keeper,
Oh,
which was
yeah. I
the
always forget about that.
animated. I was every Saturday. Couldn't wait. So I've always just had a love for the horror genre, and I started screenwriting in high school, and I've never stopped. And along the way, I was in a band. I've done some acting. I was a pro wrestler for a while.
Oh,
So
wow.
you know, Here for Blood is kind of everything I love about you know genre filmmaking. Into one script, and kind of it's all my passions. Practical effects and the pro wrestling and all that's good stuff I've always loved. And I just wanted to kind of essentially write a love letter and put together a film that I, as a fan, would want to see, and put my passions out there. So that's essentially what Here for Blood is.
Yeah, and it really does, kind of bleed through, pun intended there, for you to really see like what's going on and seeing those influences and really, giving a little bit of nostalgia for me who grew up, going to Blockbuster or renting the movies and watching a film kind of like this that was, off the walls, really crazy. It's got action, comedy, great one-liners, which I think is amazing. So it's really, kind of going back to that era. And I appreciate when, writers like yourself or anybody who's tackling on a task like this that really nail it. Because this would be something that I would definitely grab right off the shelf and be like, we're watching this Friday night for
Oh,
sure.
thanks, man.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hell yeah. So I want to, kind of ask. You were talking about that you were a pro wrestler and you loved horror. So that kind of leads into one of
Mhm.
my other questions here is, blending the wrestling and the horror aspect in the writing and then, putting it onto the screen. Like, was there any challenges in that, or did it kind of, come pretty naturally for you?
Well, it allowed me to go over the top. The very nature of the pro wrestling, it's over the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really allowed me to take the violence and make it kind of surreal and fun. It's not shocking. It's not grounded in reality. It's there's elbow drops, there's body slams, there's stuff that as an audience member, it's kind of like a Looney Tunes cartoon where it's
Yeah.
the anvil's falling on somebody and you laugh. So that was really what it allowed me to do, was kind of create a funny a fun, entertaining situation. Home invaders coming to attack a babysitter who turns out to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just, and then now you get to anticipate and expect what that entails, in terms of the action we'd see in the violence in the film.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's over the top, but it's not like too far over the top. It's so entertaining that like it keeps you really there and being like, okay, what's going to happen next? Also the looks of all the characters in this movie, I think, really drive things home as well, because the mask designs in here are so different than anything else out there. And one thing that I was thinking to myself while watching this was like, there are so many, movies and horror villains out there now that wear masks. It's hard to find a design, I feel, that really, stands out. And
Mhm.
this one, the masks are so unique and so cool looking that it felt refreshing.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we had Whitney Archer was one of our was our art director, and she kind of put together the mask. We had a good conversation about who are these killers in the world, and what's their personality, what do they bring, and we worked with our costume designer Rebecca, and the reference I gave is, I'm like, let's, I love the movie The Lost Boys. I
Oh
love
yeah.
all those vampires wearing they got the leather jackets and scarves. I'm like, let's make these guys look different. Let's make these guys look like an 80s metal band or something. Like, so every character had little different pieces. There's little patches on one guy's jacket, and the masks really, to me, just made them, instead of just having everybody in like a dark hoodie and a similar
Yeah.
mask, we wanted each killer to feel like, maybe he could have his own slasher picture, but they all came together into this one to get this, to abduct this little girl in this house. So that's kind of what we were going for. So I'm really glad that you like the mask.
Yeah, I want to own them. As a mask
Oh.
collector, like if there's ever any kind of physical media for this, if there's masks, I'm there for it,
Oh,
100%.
awesome.
Another thing too, I don't really get to talk to a lot of writers on here. It's more like, directors and actors. So to
Mm.
actually talk to somebody who was there writing it, was there anything that had to be cut from the script when you started shooting? You realized like, oh, this is a restraint, or maybe it's just not working out, so either we got to cut it or kind of rewrite it. Was there anything that kind of happened like that during the shoot?
You know what? Not really. There were things we have to pivot on because it's an independent film.
Yeah.
Time. I mean, we had weather problems. We have some we shot it in Canada, so the weather can turn on a dime, and all of a sudden it's freezing. So you just got to adapt with those things, like any film production. But nothing substantial. I think the heart of the story and the core of those characters, that I had always intended, really came through in everybody's performances, and I think I'm very happy with like my intention and the tone and the feel of this world. I feel like it really came out in all the performances, and my very good friend Thomas Vickers was the editor of the film, and he understands my sense of humor probably better than anybody.
Nice.
So I worked closely with him, and we went through some scenes and together in the editing process, and just made sure that the original tone and humor that I was hoping to see really came through in the finished product.
Oh, that's really awesome to hear, because especially with it being an independent film, sometimes people write like these scenes that are, like, sound so cool on paper, and then you're like, oh, money is just tight, or our time's there, we don't have enough time to do it. So to hear that you wrote something that you were actually able to fulfill on screen, and to make sure that everything was there, your tone, the pacing, which that's another thing of this film, it's got amazing pacing. So I congratulate you on that, for having a very entertaining film, great characters, and a well-paced horror film that really feels satisfying at the end. I think is really amazing for someone to do that, especially in an independent film like this one.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate that.
And I guess that kind of leads into my next one is, with it being a fast-paced film, did you feel like there was a challenge when you were trying to build this world, even though it seems like it's a small world, but really it feels a lot bigger. And then also with the characters, did it feel like it was tough to flesh both of those out to make sure that the characters felt, alive, and that the world felt like there was enough there to keep people entertained?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it honestly came down to performance. We when we went through casting, we were very lucky with the actors that came out for us. Jesse Buck, who plays one of the killers, he's the guy that if you see the movie, he has a very unfortunate night where he keeps just getting more and more beat up. He's the
I
Wile E.
love
Coyote
him
of the
so
film.
much.
Yeah, and he's on tour right now with Cirque du Soleil. He's a clown. He's a professional Cirque du
Wow.
Soleil clown. So he's got this incredible physicality and these facial expressions. So we had these really talented people come in, and they got the tone, they got what we wanted, and they really brought a lot to what I had pictured, and they just went above and beyond and really ran with it and had fun. They had a lot of fun, and they got what we were going for.
That's awesome. And having Sean Roberts in here too, which a lot of people know from him being Wesker on the Resident Evil franchise. So seeing him and here doing another horror role. I was reading a couple interviews of him talking about this and how like thrilled he is to do this, because he was also a fan of wrestling, and to be here to do this and just to see how crazy he can be by being like the center star of this. Because with those ones he was there, but he was more of a villain in the Resident Evil film, so he wasn't like super in the center. But to see what he can really do, like
Yeah.
he is great on screen, man. Great.
Yeah, he and that was a challenge. We had to have somebody who was built like a pro wrestler and who had a charisma and the acting experience to be able to carry this film. Because if you don't buy this guy, if you don't believe he could kick ass, if you don't believe his relationship with the character Grace, the girl that he's looking after, it falls apart pretty quickly. So Sean checked all those boxes, and I'm really, it was like we just reached out to him. We just emailed him cold, and we're like, hey, we talked to his agent. We said we have this script, and I was like, there's no way he's going to do this, like this independent movie in the middle of nowhere, But he liked the script, and I think Sean's been waiting for an opportunity to kind of sink his teeth into more of an action-oriented role. Because there's not a lot of that stuff going on, in the Canadian film industry. It's a lot of Hallmark movies, and
Yeah.
we get a lot of Amazon and Netflix shows that come into Toronto and stuff, but they bring their own cast. Like, there's not a lot of room for Canadian talent outside of playing like a carpenter on a Christmas tree farm or something, Hallmark Christmas, you know what I mean? So, so I think Sean was really excited and he did all his own stunts. He was taking all those bumps. He was doing all the fight scenes himself. And like, that makes a huge difference, right? Like when you can tell it's Sean, like getting slammed onto the floor and punching guys, it makes it so much, as a fan of the movie, I love to see that. And it makes it more exciting in my eyes.
Yeah, no, it was really fun seeing him get beat up and beat people up. It's great. I highly recommend this for anybody who's waiting for this film to come out. Obviously, go watch it in theaters, and then when you get home from the theaters, watch it again on Screenbox. But it's really, really fun. It's a popcorn film for sure. You could get some buddies over, and you'll have a laugh and have a lot of fun. I had said earlier that the pacing of this film is really good, because it doesn't really leave you hanging anywhere or being like, okay, so what's going to happen next? There's always some objective or something going on in this, and it's either really funny or really bloody or both. And that's another thing I want to comment on is the use of practical effects in this, for it being an indie film, for how many risks that you guys took for going practical and making it look really good. I felt like you did an amazing job on everything on here.
Yeah, that's our special effects studio, the Butcher Shop. Those guys are awesome. They love the genre, they love what they do, and they're fans just like I am. Like, when we were having discussions with them, that's important to me, is to keep practical effects alive, and especially in horror cinema, and because it's so much better when there's something tangible,
Oh yeah.
and it's a craftsmanship that really goes into it, and I think I'm the kind of horror fan that I appreciate that, and I there's a certain love to it, you know what I mean, to go through, because like we're independent, sometimes we have one of something,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay,
Yep.
we got one take, you guys, and you don't know which way the blood's gonna go, you don't know which way somebody's head's gonna fall off, if their head's coming off, you don't know what's gonna happen. So luckily we got everything we needed, and it was because of those guys at the butcher shop.
Awesome. Well, if anybody's looking for great practical effect artists, there you go. Reach out to them. Because, man, it's so fun seeing some of the crazy things that happened in here. I don't want to spoil anything, but you're in for a treat for people who love practical effects and love crazy things happening. It's amazing. Even with like some of the visual effects that were being like used on top of like people with glowing eyes, I thought was
Mm-hmm.
really really cool. So everything was like done so tastefully in this film that I think a lot of people need to go and watch this and be like, okay, so if I'm going to be doing practical and if I'm going to be doing any kind of visual effects layered over it, I'm going to watch this film and see what these guys did, because everything in here felt super polished. Nothing felt rushed. Watching it wasn't like, oh, that was like kind of like half-assed over there, but it really wasn't. Everything was very polished and amazing, and really like came to life on the screen watching it, especially with dialogues that are going on and crazy scenes. Like I don't know, I'm gushing over this film because of how amazing it is.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also have to thank Screambox, because they've been bringing such great films to the horror community, and for the directors and writers, for yourselves, to find a community somewhere. I kind of
Mhm.
wanted to ask you about how was the process of getting in contact with Screambox. Did they find you? Did you reach out to them? Like how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, we just we had this kind of a I guess boldness during this entire process, where we just keep reaching out, like asking people. We just asked Sean Roberts, "Do you want to be in it?" We asked Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, "Do you want to be in it?"
Yeah.
And then uh, we were forwarded Brad Miska's email from Bloody Disgusting, and he's part of the Screambox team. And I cold emailed them and just said, "Hey, uh, just reaching out. Here's the festivals we've done. Can I send you a little more information? We got a media package, whatever you want to see." And he checked out a screener and liked it, and we were thrilled to go with Screambox and Cineverse, because they're the real deal. They're horror fans. They're not you know they're not the kind of people that are gonna want to ruin their reputations by just putting out like a cynical, cash grab.
Yeah.
They recognize passion, they recognize um, love for the genre, and they respect it, and they want to champion it. So we're guys from Canada that made this movie like in the middle of nowhere with no resources, and they're giving us a really incredible platform to share everything we love with our community, because that's what it's, a horror community, and it's so special. And I'm just excited to engage with them and discuss things with them and be a part of it, whether they like the film or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's special and it's unique. And I think it's really, really wonderful that they're starting to be that bridge for creators and fans in the whole community. It's really exciting.
Yeah, they are. I have a couple friends that work over there. Alex, who's kind of like doing all the interviews here. He's actually a
Mm-hmm.
local friend of mine, and we do a lot of things together. And he really turned me on to the Screenbox about, oh my God, almost 2 years now. I think I've been doing some coverage for them, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm never disappointed with what's coming out on there. There's been such great foreign films that have been put on that platform, local films, and now I think this is maybe the second or third Canadian film that I've seen on here, and it blew my mind. You'd be like, there's so many great films out there, and it just keeps getting better and better. So to see you, part of the Screenbox family now, like, is amazing, and I can't wait to, throw this on, probably almost every week for the next couple of months because I'm obsessed with this film.
I appreciate that.
Hell yeah. And to be here to talk to you and discuss this film, and for everybody to be aware of this, because there is a lot of content out there. And I was talking to, some friends the other day, like, there's so much stuff, being put out now. To place your time wisely, or to be like, I'm going to watch this today, and then realize, oh man, I wanted to watch that instead. So when these screeners kind of come about, and like I read the synopsis, I'm like, I'm going to check it out. I have to check it out. If I don't watch it, I'm going to miss an opportunity. And I watched it, and I was like, thank you, because this was amazing. To start the year off with a banger already is great, man. So congrats for being part of the family, and I'm really happy for your success, man.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I guess I'll leave off on one last question for you. We'll end a little bit early because we kind of went through everything fast, which was great. Is what's next? Are you going to be working on anything else along with Here for Blood, or are you currently working on anything else like that?
Well, I do have a script that I'm pretty happy with, that I'm kind of polishing, getting ready to maybe take out and show around. But I mean, if fans respond to this movie and there's a demand or a desire to see more, I would be more than happy to jump back into this world and give more people the over the top pro wrestling action violence in a sequel. I'd love to get into that.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what's next for you. Another thing that I was thinking about that I'm glad I just remembered now was how this also kind of feels like a comic book, because of how, crazy, some of the scenes are. It's like, this is like something that would be written in a comic book. So I'm thinking you should get some comic books made of this. This would be great.
I would absolutely love that.
I know a comic book artist.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, give me his number. I'd love to get that going. That'd be so much fun. There's definitely a lot of interesting things in that medium that you can explore that are you can't necessarily do in a film. So that would be a fun opportunity to explore that kind of storytelling.
Hell yeah. Well, if you stick around for 1 second after this, I'll give you some contact information.
Sure.
But James, this was great. Being able to dive a little bit more into this and to learn about what was happening behind the scenes in the writing process, and to bring awareness to this film that's going to be coming out on February 9th in theaters and on Screenbox. It was a great opportunity to get to know you and to chat about this film that I am in love with. So thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And thank you for your time as well, and for having me on. This was a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Make sure you check this out. Like I said, on February 9th, it'll be in theaters and on Screenbox same day. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see you on the next one.